I think that's where you look at where you're at and look at the same. What are the most important things you think would get to the next level? What types of things? Is it the marketing? Do you have marketing in place? Do you have good marketing? Do you have systems in place? So you have to do, it's like looking and tweaking each piece at one at a time. So it's not, a lot of times entrepreneurs will chase shiny objects. They'll say, this person is doing really good in this area.
Hey, Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, Mark? Thanks a lot for inviting me on the show. I'm excited about this. Really good. We've had some great talks already, and I'm excited about getting into this.
Welcome to Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. I have to start by asking, what does peak performance mean to you?
Higher standard. I think that's the one thing I look at is I had a trainer and he was like, Steve, you got to set your standards higher than what you've been doing. And so for me, it's getting to the next level. If I want to get to the next level, I have to like that comes for every level of my life. And I think that's when I look at entrepreneurs the same way. High standards are what is the next, where can I put my standards at? Because where I'm at right now, where I want to go, I'm going to have a higher standard. And that's what I'm putting in what I'm reading, what I'm eating. And I'm a big believer in meditation. So I also do is what am I doing to get that honed? And the things that I do, I'm a big reader. I do a lot of, if I can, some workshops, do some things like that can get in front of people that have done it better than me. I think but performance is high performance. I believe in everywhere. If I can say it in one word, is standards.
There are so many people who are reading the books and who are listening to the podcasts, and they have a vision for themselves where they want to be at a high standard, but they're never able to execute it. So, what's that little bridge between having high standards, consuming information, but then also being putting into practice so you actually see results?
I think sometimes it comes down to grit. I think the one thing is, if you look at it, is what are you doing? I think a lot of times, if you keep on the mindset, it starts with the mindset. And if you're continually saying to yourself, I can't do it, of course, what is going to happen? You can't do it. But that's the thing, the shift on when it comes down to it, it's got to start with the mindset. And a matter of people, they think that reading a book, you got to put that in practice. But it's always consistency. If you consistently do something, I talk to people that, that never meditate. And I always say, start with 5 minutes. If you can't do 5 minutes, do 1 minute, but start someplace. And it's like a muscle. The more you do things, the stronger you're going to get. I always say that if you can get up to that 30 minutes on meditation, but then also too is what are you eating? The thing is, what are you putting in your body? Because I think we're like a machine in some ways. And what are we feeding? And it goes with mind too. What are we reading? Some of the things we're reading. But that shift of ideas, I can't do it, to what's possible. And then if you can do that, I always say is that start with small steps sometimes, because a lot of times if you do everything at once, you're going to fail. There's some people that can do that, but I go back to this 30-day, I have to look at it as this 30-day entrepreneur mindset reset. And a lot of it's to do with starting little things like meditation's a good thing. Looking at how much water you're drinking a day, things like that. What are you reading? Are you getting out and doing some exercise? Exercise, I think, is super important. And a lot of entrepreneurs, I don't have time. You don't have to. That's the problem is they're sitting in front of the TV or things like that, zoning out. Why not zone out at the gym and just do the work there? That's the way I look at it is those are the things you got to really look at when you're looking at, if you want to perform at a different level, those are the things you really got to start with. And it's not going to start overnight. That's the one thing I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, they go in head first and then all of a sudden they get burned out. And I think that's one of the things that they need to look at.
What did the phrase make the 10x leap mean to you when you first wrote it?
When I first wrote this, there was a lot of entrepreneurs that I ran across that were comfortable where they're at. And they kept this saying to themselves, I can't do it. And they've been in this business for so long. There is another, it's almost like another gear. Put it in another gear. And that 10x leap really is going from where you're at to the next level, the next 10x. It's, and like I said, it starts in the mind. And then from there, it's a matter of what do you need to put in place? The things are, who do you need to get on board your bus? That's the thing. What kind of people do you need in place? If you look at a lot of the things you can do is get those people in place, and then it's systems. What type of systems do you need to put in place? Do you have a great CRM? How are you using the CRM? What's your marketing? Things like that. All the little things that really get you to the next 10x. And it's crazy is sometimes entrepreneurs look at it as it looks so hard. It's just as hard to be where they're at now. Why not 10x it? I say a lot of entrepreneurs look at this too as maybe they're doing 10 million. And I always say, if you're doing 10, why can't you do 50? Or why can't you do 100? And they say it's too hard. And I say, you're doing 10. So obviously, why not do the little other steps to get you to the next level? And a lot of times it's a matter of getting themselves out of the day-to-day operations. They're the ones that should be looking at as a visionary, looking at what's going forward. If they get themselves out of the operations day to day, they can look so much clearer.
So, is there a specific personality type that is more likely to make the 10x leap, or is this something that anybody can do?
Anybody can do it. I think the learning mindset is got to be one of the things. Willing to learn is really important. A lot of times, everybody has an ego. But if you can take part of that ego out and really think about how can I learn things? How can I learn things that I need to get to the next level? I think it's the learning mindset's probably the most important thing. And then it's what am I doing to control my ego? What types of things am I working on? Am I thinking about things that are affecting my business in not a good way? And that's really what you look at is if you continually tell yourself it can't be done, or I'm not capable, or things like that, obviously it's just not going to work. But it's a matter of just getting yourself to think differently. And that learning mindset, I think, is the person with that is really important. And not the blame game. It's like the economy is bad, or my people are not listening to me, or our industry is too competitive. All the things that they tell themselves, those are the other things. If you continually tell yourself that, what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to grow. I'd say if you can look past all that and say, where's my goal? And then work backwards from there.
You mentioned it's very important to keep the ego aside. Can you give an example of an ego problem that you see with most entrepreneurs when you start working with them?
Yeah, not listening. The one thing I found, I'll give you a good example. I was looking at this company and they had two founders and a CEO. They hired a CEO. I went in. I always do these little tests, basic tests. I like to get all in the group. And what you do is you start things like asking them a lot of questions, always ask them questions, and see who answers the questions. And then from there, it's a matter of how do they interact with each other? Who's the main person running the company? And are they willing to look and listen to you? The one thing I found out is that CEO he was more of a figurehead. They really didn't listen to him. And you could tell in the meeting right away. The one founder was the one that was running the company. And the problem was he wasn't willing to listen for ideas. Investors had brought me in because they were having problems. I saw it right away because what they were struggling with is the one founder wasn't willing to listen to any other advice except his own. That's where the ego comes into play, is that it really affected the company. The company could have been a great company, but because of what was going on with that founder, it struggled for a long time until they removed him. Once they removed him, it flourished. It did really well. But it was that was the ego. And it always comes down to that. Egos are great unless you don't have it in check.
You need a lot of ego, and just I know what I'm doing, I'll figure it out kind of mentality when you start a business. Because there's so many forces around you that's telling you it's a bad idea, it's never going to work out. So over the years, as you're building that company, you are successful because of that. I know what I'm doing. But then you get to a point where you obviously need help. How do you recommend someone manage and balance that?
Well, really, what it comes down to coaching. I think a lot of times I've hired coaches, and I always suggest to the entrepreneurs is find a really good mentor and find a really good coach, because those are really the things that'll help them think differently and maybe think about, okay, what can I do to get my company to the next level? Those are the really important. So that's what it starts with, is that if you don't have a coach or a mentor, I always suggest to them, not suggest, I demand that they do get one, because it's really important. Because obviously you get a coach for everything. You get a coach for at the gym, all the areas you want to go. If you want to go to the next level, why not find somebody that's already done it?
So, what would you say is the number one reason most businesses plateau before they even get to the 7 or 8 figures?
It's comes down to the owner, the mindset. I always say that a small business doesn't have to be small. A lot of times, you always hear the entrepreneur, we're a small business. I hate that, because the thing is, it gets them almost pigeon-toed into what they're thinking is that I'm a small business. We can't get to the next level. I'll tell you what, more than likely, you've had 10 companies that have gotten to the next level that were in your similar situation. And so what I've seen is the plateau is because of the founders. They can't seem to think about what's on the other side. The other thing is too, marketing is, I think I look at it as is really important, and you really have to get to the next level. That marketing has to be in play.
You talk about something called the prolonged stall. What does that mean, and how can leaders break free from it?
Oh, that's where I go back to the prolonged stall. Is a lot of times is they thought is they could see, maybe they wanted to get to the next level. Maybe their next level was that from 10 to 50 million. And they've put that on the back burner. They didn't do the things that they knew they needed to do. Get a coach, get employees. So they always say, I can't afford employees. Well, quite frankly, you can't afford not to have good employees. Or maybe they have one employee that's been an issue and they feel that they can't replace that employee. Things like that give them, it puts in that prolonged stall. And it can be for a long time. It could be years if they don't look past that. And that's where that coach comes into play. It really can get them to the next step, the thinking differently, looking at their company differently, and then getting them out of, instead of the day to day, looking at their company from outside.
Let's talk about your DNA success formula. What is that, and what are the components of it?
So there's three. It's, I think, discipline, the discipline of able to do it. A lot of times I worked on this with my trainers. The one thing is look at the discipline of what you're doing, the things that you're putting in place for your company, the types of things you need to do to get to the next level. And then no excuses. A lot of times it's easy to say excuse, one excuse, the other excuse, we can't do this because we don't have the money, or our marketing is not really what I want it to be, or we don't have the employees, all the things that they tell themselves. We don't have the right products. The things are all that stuff they tell themselves. So take the excuses out, completely out. That's where I go back to again. Get that coach or mentor and to work through those. The other thing is to the next action. Get in action. If it's one thing I say is do something, do one thing, and make that the next level is do one thing and then start doing other things after that. A lot of times entrepreneurs want to do 10 things. Well, do one first and then start from there. But that's where the DNA mindset comes into play.
How do you go about choosing which one thing to do, though? Because when you're an entrepreneur, it's a game of putting out fire every single day, and there's so many things. How do you decide where to focus on?
I think that's where you look at where you're at and look at the same, like you said, the fires. What are the most important things you think would get to you to the next level? You know, what types of things? Is it the marketing? Do you have marketing in place? Do you have good marketing? Do you have systems in place? So you have to do, it's like looking and tweaking each piece at one at a time. So it's not a lot of times entrepreneurs will chase shiny objects. They'll say, this person is doing really good in this area. You got to back yourself off of that and look at what your company can do. And that's, it's more, don't follow everybody, especially your competition. You can look at your competition, but a lot of times you don't want to follow where they're going. Your direction more likely will be different. So that's one of the things I look at is in each step. And when you're tweaking everything, the systems, you do one at a time. And it's a matter of, okay, what is it that I want to do? Where do I want to go? That's where I started. Where do you want to go? And then back it off from there.
We talked a little bit about the importance of marketing, and you also mentioned how entrepreneurs should really think about if good marketing is in place. For someone listening to this, can we define what good marketing means?
Yeah, it starts with the customer. Do you really know your customer? Because I think here's the thing. It's easier to keep an existing customer than getting a new one. And so do you have your marketing in place to actually keep your customer happy? And then the other thing is too, how does your customer look at your company? Do they look at you as a partner or do they look at you as a commodity? That's going to be the problem. You have to really look at how they look at your company. And then from there, it's a matter of, okay, do I really understand who my customer is? And then if you can do that, really drill down who your customer is, and then replicate that and go after that customer. It's a lot easier to do that than try to go in a different direction. And so that's where I work off, drilling down that customer and really understand it. That's where the marketing comes into play, is marketing directly towards that person. And that's a matter of what types of things are you doing for that customer to make them feel they're part of the team, part of your company, part of the team.
For someone listening to this podcast, if they're wondering if they are investor ready, can you tell us what makes a company investor ready?
Yeah, it's basically when it comes down to, I always look at the team first. What type of team do they have? Do they have a strong team? Is the team really running well? Meaning, do they have a marketing? Do they have a processes in place? Who do they have? If they have a founder, I have one founder, I like a visionary, but I also like to see an implementer. If you have two of them, I really like to see that because it really runs. The visionary a lot of times won't get things done that the implementer will. So that really, then be investor ready, that's got to be in place. And then one is what in the systems, looking at your systems to get that in place so that when you're adding more people or systems or even that one more widget, what's the profit on that one more widget? I think that's where you look at. So all those things gets that person or that company investor ready. And then from there, it's a matter of, okay, do they need capital? A lot of times I look at companies and that's not really what they need. They just need, the thing is, they always say capital. Well, a lot of times they're not investor ready to even get capital in place. And so that's where you come in and look at the systems and then look at the people that are there. A lot of times, if the people are not in the right seats, salespeople, are they order takers? Are your salespeople order takers? Or are they actually true salespeople? You look at every department and see what one's going to break or make the company. And so then it's all those pieces to get them the investor ready. And then from there, it's a matter, okay, if we're going to go out and get capital, what kind of capital are we going to get? We're going to get debt. We're going to bring investors in, get their pitch deck up and run up the snuff. We always want to look at the pitch deck and then how are they doing a presentation. It comes down to how they do a presentation. Everything needs to be in line to start bringing in capital that way.
So when you start researching a company, deciding if they're investor ready or not, especially your own personal investment, what's the first red flag you're looking for?
I look at the people first. I do. I look at the founder right away. A lot of times don't even look at the books until I figure out if there's somebody I want to work with, how they interact with the team, how they take responsibility, things like that. You can really tell if this is going to be a good company or not. And then from there, then open the books. And then you look at the books and see what's their profit, what, how are they, where are they weak, some of the areas. You can a lot of times tell that by just basically my background was accounting. And so when I open look at the books, you can tell what's happening. But I always start with the team first and go from the team. And then from there, it's a matter of, okay, let's look at the books after that.
So much of your work is meeting people, first looking at them, deciding if you want to work with them. How do you go about spotting this leadership potential?
It's like almost a sixth sense. You have this, it's something that I've acquired over time just by working with so many people. That emotional intelligence, I think that's really the key, and really listening to the people, what they're saying. Because a lot of times you can get a lot of stuff. I was looking at this company and I was interviewing the founder, and it wasn't so much what he was saying, but what he was doing that you could tell. Some of the things, the little things that I noticed that when he was talking, and a lot of those cues that you would never notice otherwise really came into play. And it showed what he was about. And so it was a matter of like how he was talking to me, how he's talking to his team, how he thought of his team, and a lot of those areas that really could tell what he was thinking as a leader. And so that's where I think the emotional intelligence is really important.
What you also described is intuition when you're meeting somebody.
So
So,
true.
how does that intuition play a role in strategic decision making?
Oh, for me, it's one of the things, it's a gut feeling. You have that gut feeling because a lot of times you can look at the books and the books look great. The people, they have their good, they got the good face on and they look great. And then you look and talk to the employees. That's the other thing is too, you talk to the employees, you really can learn a lot from just talking to not the higher management team, but the lower levels, and really see how they really look at the management team. And so it's all that really gives me that gut feeling that, okay, I'm either making a right decision or I'm going to back away.
Was there ever a bold decision that you made that didn't go as planned? And what did it teach you? How did that end up?
Yeah, I invested in this company. It was a startup, and I looked at it, and the product was sound. I liked the product. It was something that I was thinking, okay, the founder was somebody that was, I call him, he was the mad scientist, great at putting stuff together, formulating stuff, but he was terrible at marketing. And he really didn't want even thing to do with marketing. Marketing was just a byproduct. He didn't see the importance of that. And what I learned is it was a company that I was really close to. And when I got myself out of it, the one thing I learned is what I was good at. The things that I looked at is what was important to a company, what was important to me, and what was important to as a founder, what things need to be in place for as a founder. And so now I look at it as you need to have that mad scientist, but you also need to have somebody on the next to him. The mad scientist is great, but you also want the guy that's actually going to be running the company. So I learned a lot. The marketing is probably the one thing I learned a lot about it, is really what that meant. And then from there, it's a matter of, okay, what types of things, listen to my gut a lot more.
When you're talking about good marketing still, if somebody's listening to it and you're evaluating a company as an investor and you're saying, oh, this is good marketing or not, what are the specific components in that marketing? Is it PR work? Is it running ads? What are you looking for to determine if they have
I
good
look at
marketing?
it, how many ways are you getting out there and touching your customers? If it's one way, you probably need to do six. That's the one thing I look at, is because it's never, the thing is, a lot of times what happens is your marketing can be really good now, but maybe a year from now, completely different. Maybe your customer changes, maybe the industry changes, a lot of things that happen. So your marketing's got to be continually changing with it. And I look at that as when I look at marketing, it's not just one way for them to market to that person. Social media is great, but there's so many other ways to get in front of your customer. Are you doing podcasts like this? Are you speaking in front of your clients? Are you speaking in front of them somewhere? Are you writing articles? Even boring companies should be doing stuff like that. Are you doing things like direct mail? Direct mail is people think it's dead. Actually, it's not. It's actually probably better now than ever because a lot of people are not doing it. And so a lot of those things, it's just a lot of little things and it just adds up, continually adds up. And the more you know about your customer, the more you can find out where they're going to be. The things are maybe they're not on Facebook, maybe they're not on LinkedIn, maybe they're someplace else. And so that's where I look at it as social media is great, but it's just one piece of the marketing, I'd say.
As entrepreneurs, and even as an investor, when you're investing in a company, you're making bold decisions, taking chances, seeing the result, and then deciding, should I double down or is it time to pivot? And a lot of times we go way too far when we shouldn't have. And a lot of times we pull out when we shouldn't have. What is your intuition in terms of when to do what?
A lot of times you do the A/B testing. If you do a lot of testing, and if you're consistently hitting a wall, it's probably a good time to pivot. That if you're continually seeing the same bad results, it's probably time to something's not working right. So you got to look at it as okay, there's a reason for that. Maybe the industry's changed some. I've seen that in companies where after COVID, the industry changed. And so they were still doing the marketing the way they were doing before COVID, and they weren't pivoting. And so that was one of the areas that I looked at is okay, if you're getting bad results now, you need to pivot, change a little bit. And that's a lot of times companies need to bring somebody from the outside to look at that and say, hey, because a lot of times when they're in it, they just don't notice it. They always say, how is the best way to boil a frog alive? Put in lukewarm water and then just turn up the heat. It's the same way. They don't notice it until it's too late a lot of times. So that's where they bring somebody from the outside. That comes in the coaching, a lot of the things like that.
What is one habit or routine you swear by that keeps you sharp?
Oh, I tell you, I am one habit, meditation. Meditation is really important for me. The other thing is too, I used to have a Apple Watch and I got rid of it because it was too distracting. The problem is what was happening is you get the dings and you get the phone calls, you get all that stuff on your phone or on your watch. So I switched to just a regular watch and it made a big difference. Cut off social media. Social media is another area that, that little dopamine that you get. Those are the things, just some little things. And I would say that it wasn't for me, it's not one thing. It's going to the gym in the morning. I get up early, go to the gym. That's one thing I won't skip. And then from there, it's a matter of doing the meditation. And that meditation for me, it really gets me calmed down from the start of the day. So that's where I start. And then from there, it's like my eating habits, cut out the alcohol, things like that really help. So when you sleep better, and then the next morning, when you sleep better, you start your day a lot better that way. So those are a lot of the habits that I work off.
It's easier to stick to these habits when life is good and fine. But when pressure comes, we become sometimes a different person. So, how does your decision-making framework look like under pressure?
I think when I would say the habits under pressure come in, I think are probably more important than ever, especially with the gym. You get in that, I always say like the sewer mind, and you get yourself in the funk. Once you get to the gym, it's like you can flip the switch relatively quick by just working a lot harder, doing some of the things like that. It changes your mindset. Once you get out of there, you're refreshed, and then it's a matter of, okay, what are the things but the pressure, I think more important, if you're in the pressure like that, it is more important to have those habits than ever. A lot of times the entrepreneurs say, I don't have the time. You don't have time not to do it. So those are the things.
Is there a bold risk that you're taking now that's scaring you a little bit? What is it
Mm.
and why does it scare you?
Yeah, I'm almost going to be 10xing my office space. And so it's a big risk for me to take that. And so I'm bringing in more people. And it's for me, it's going to be a big jump. And that's one of the areas. But I always try to do, besides just the business, but I also try to do is push myself personally, health wise and then physically. I think I always try to do something outside myself too. And those are the things that, besides business, I do want to push myself outside. And I think we talked about is where I want to go to at my health, my body, I would say my body fat, things like that. And then I think I told you I want to do this. It's called a picnic. And the picnic is, for me, it's a big deal. It's 25-mile bike, and then you do a mile and a half swim, and then you climb the top of the Tetons, and then you do it reverse, come back down, and you do it in a day. And so that's a big, bold move for me. And so those are the types of things I want to do is push myself to the next level. So besides just business, I want to do that too. And so it's continually, what can Steve do? I just put that out there is what can Steve do next?
If you could go back in time and probably a time when you were low and you weren't who you were, knowing what you know today, what would you advise that person?
Take more chances. I would say the one thing is I would tell my other self is take more chances and don't be afraid to fail. The thing is, a lot of times you learn so much more failing than you do when you're on top. I think those are the one things I learned.
Can
I
you
would
give an
say
example, like when you should have taken more chance and you didn't?
I had a business, and I think what I did is I held back too long, and I could have. What I feel now is if I would have just did some more things, taken the more chances like that, I could have been at a higher level in that business. And that was the one thing I would say to myself is, yeah, take more chances. Don't be afraid to fail. And the other thing is too, I can tell myself, you can do it. That's the other thing is too. The grit that I have looking back in my life about some of the things I went through, that grit that you accumulate over time, it helps. It's like rocket fuel. It really helps you when you're in the grind sometimes. But that's where I look at it is it's take the chances. Yeah.
What would you think a young version of you would be the most proud of if he saw you today?
Taking the chances now that I'm taking. I mean, that's the thing. I think that's the thing. It's like proud of thinking the chances that I've taken now. That's really when I look back and you look at your younger self and you're thinking, wow, how did you get there? That's the thing I look at is, and it comes down to a lot of the things that I did when I was younger, and it got me to here. And those are the things that you look back then and say, man, that was bad, or it was hard, or but it really built you up to the next level to get to the next level. And so the harder the thing is, sometimes it's the best thing. That's the way I look at it. I was an accounting major. I got my CPA. And for me, school was really hard. And I moved forward. And I would say one of the other things I look at is the grit, not failing. I wasn't going to fail, put it that way. So that's where I look at in life in general, health wise, and the learning mindset for me, really important. I try to do is I read a lot. I try to learn from everybody. There's not somebody that you can't learn something from. That Uber driver, I can learn a lot from the Uber driver sometimes. So that's I look at it too. The learning mindset's really important for me.
Steve, tell our audience where they can find you. What's going on in your life?
Yeah, so you can find me, go at Steve at bisonequitygroup.com or go on LinkedIn and find me at Steve Walsh in LinkedIn. Either way, in my book, Make the 10X Leap, if you want to go on Amazon, you can buy the book there. But my website is bisonequitygroup.com. So either of those areas, you can find me. I'd love to have you guys come reach out to me and talk to me about what you need. And I'm always there. I like to look at companies, help them grow companies, bring in capital, people or systems if I need to, and then look as 10X that company.
Awesome. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll talk to you soon.
It was great talking to you.
Thank you.